The Second Vatican Council was not an entirely dogmatic council. Paul VI said so himself, 8 weeks after its closing. And today, June 5, 2026, a Catholic bishop, in full communion with Rome, puts it in writing in a formal document, 26 days after the consecrations of Écône. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this document and what happened in Rome 3 days ago together form the clearest picture we've had in years of the crisis the Church is experiencing. Archbishop Athanasius Schneider has faced silent pressure for his positions. He continues to speak. For the traditionalist public, this is exactly the profile of the inconvenient witness, someone who says what no one in the Vatican palaces dares to put in writing. Let's start with the facts. On June 5, 2026, Archbishop Schneider published on Diane Montagne's Substack, immediately picked up by Rorate Cayley and 1 Peter 5, a document entitled The Core Question Regarding the SSPX. The thesis is surgical. The debate on the canonical regularization of the Society of St. Pius X suffers from a fundamental methodological error. What is this error? Treating Vatican II as if it were a completely dogmatic council, whose affirmations were all definitively proposed and binding on the Catholic faith. Monsignor Schneider quotes Paul VI himself. On January 12, 1966, just after the council had concluded, Paul VI stated in a general audience that the council has avoided proclaiming, in an extraordinary way, dogmas endowed with the note of infallibility. It's not Schneider who says this. It's Paul VI, 8 weeks after the close of the Second Vatican Council, who declares that the council produced no extraordinary dogmatic definitions. This is the cornerstone of the argument, and it changes everything. Monsignor Schneider documents what traditionalists have been calling the Holy See's double standards for years. The German synodal path promotes positions that many theologians would call de facto heresies: the blessing of irregular unions, the revision of sexual morality, and Rome responds with patience. The Society of St. Pius X, on the other hand, denies zero Catholic dogma, celebrates the Mass of all time, and trains rigorous priests, and Rome threatens excommunication. The paradox is this: one risks canonical sanction, not for having denied the faith, but for not having unconditionally accepted a pastoral council that its promoter himself declared non-binding in the extraordinary sense. Let's dwell for a moment on the canonical detail. Monsignor Schneider recalls that Canon 1382 of the Code of Canon Law of 1983, the one that punishes episcopal consecration without a pontifical mandate. It is classified among the crimes against the sacraments, not among the crimes against the unity of the Church, where schism is punished in Canon 1364. Canonical classification alone suggests that the gesture of 1988 was not judged by ecclesiastical legislators to be a schismatic act in the strict sense. In canon law, technical details are everything. Monsignor Schneider's request is concrete. Leo XIV should grant an exceptional apostolic mandate authorizing the episcopal consecrations planned by the Society for July 1, 2026. The following warning is historic. It would be a tragedy if the Society were completely excluded from the life of the Church, and the responsibility would fall primarily on the Holy See. It's not a threat. It's a pastoral diagnosis signed by a bishop in full communion with Rome, and it sounds like a final appeal before the deadline. And here, something even deeper comes into play. 3 days ago, on June 3, 2026, Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, Dean of the College of Cardinals, 92 years old, sent the preparatory letter for the extraordinary consistory of June 26-29. 4 sessions: the international situation and armed conflicts, Magnifica Humanitas and artificial intelligence again, and the reception of the Synod. The liturgy is completely absent from the agenda. The consistory is held 3 days before the consecrations of Écône, the most serious liturgical crisis in recent decades, and Leo XV does not include the liturgy on the agenda. It brings together all the cardinals of the world and doesn't discuss Écône. It doesn't discuss the fraternity. It doesn't discuss the Mass of all time. On the one hand, Monsignor Schneider today publishes the most detailed theological document ever signed by a prelate in communion with Rome in defense of the Society of St. Pius X. On the other hand, Leo XIV summons all the cardinals of the world 3 days after Écône and puts artificial intelligence on the agenda. The liturgical silence in the consistory program is not an oversight. An extraordinary consistory requires months of preparation. Every item on the agenda is a deliberate choice, and Écône is not there. This sentence isn't an opinion, it's a diagnosis. The Holy See knows perfectly well that July 1st, 2026 is approaching. He knows that the Society has announced episcopal consecrations. He knows that Archbishop Schneider today published a formal and documented defense. And the institutional response is a motion that discusses artificial intelligence. Here lies the paradox that no one wants to name. An institution that cares enough to threaten excommunication doesn't care enough to put the issue on the agenda of the Church's most authoritative body. Either the threat is a bluff, or the consistory's agenda is itself a message. The history of the Church has already seen this type of conflict. St. Catherine of Siena wrote letters to the Pope that seemed to fall on deaf ears. Then suddenly, the Pope took action. Not because the letters had convinced, but because the silence had become unbearable. Monsignor Schneider is not Catherine of Siena. But the courage to name the real question, in writing 26 days after Écône, is exactly the kind of action that breaks institutional silence. The question every Catholic is asking this evening is just one. Will Leo XIV respond? Will the consistory of June 26th open in silence on Écône? Or will something change in the next 26 days? If you appreciate this work and wish to support us, you can join the channel's subscriptions program. As a completely independent project, your support helps us continue to provide content about faith and the Church. Thank you so much. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.